Teaching about language isn't the same as learning a language, and it's also not quite the same as teaching a language either. And that's where a lot of confusion comes from. When we talk about language, we're often mixing up three different things. First, there's learning about language. That's knowing rules, terminology, and definitions, understanding how English works as a system. Second, there's learning a language. That's developing the ability to understand and use English in real situations over time. And third, there's teaching a language. That's not just explaining rules, it's designing the conditions to allow learners to acquire and use the language themselves. The problem is that these three ideas often get blurred. And when they do, teaching can easily turn into explanation, without that explanation ever becoming usable language. And that's what I want to explore in this video. My name's Jane Maria Harding-Rosa from Enriching English Language Teaching. So where does the problem between teaching about language and learning a language come from? It often starts on teacher training courses, especially ones like CELTA. Many trainees are learning explicit grammar knowledge for the first time at the same time as learning how to teach. So they're learning grammatical rules, forms, labels, terminology. And because they're learning about language, it's very easy to assume this must be what teaching language looks like. Teaching becomes standing in front of the classroom, explaining clearly and hoping that clarity equals learning. But learners are not trainee teachers. They don't need English explained as a system. They need English to become usable. Learning about language gives learners knowledge. They might know the name of a tense, the definition of a word, the rule for word order. But learning a language is about developing a skill. It's about understanding meaning in context, recognizing patterns through exposure, becoming more fluent and automatic over time. You can understand how English works and still not know what to say. That's why so many learners hesitate before speaking. They translate in their heads, struggle to apply language independently. The issue isn't effort or motivation. It's that knowing the rule doesn't automatically mean knowing how to use it. From the learner's point of view, this gap is very real. They often think, I understand the explanation, but I don't know what to say. They might do well in controlled tasks. They might answer comprehension questions correctly. But when the support disappears, the language disappears with it. When lessons stop at explanation, learners are left holding information, not language. This is where teaching a language becomes different from teaching about language. Teaching a language means designing a process. Learners need time. They need time to meet language in meaningful context, work with it through supported practice and repetition, and eventually make it their own by using it purposefully. Explanation still matters, but it works best after learners have encountered the language and begun to notice how it behaves. When explanation comes first and dominates the lesson, learning often stays theoretical. When explanation supports experience, learning becomes practical and transferable. A more powerful starting point for language teaching is not the rule, but the context. Ask yourselves, where would this language naturally occur? Who is using it? Why are they using it? What meaning does it help express? Context gives language a purpose, and once learners understand why language exists, they are far more able to experiment with it themselves. So if you've ever thought, but I explained it really clearly, you're not alone. We've all been there. The shift isn't about explaining less, it's about starting somewhere different. Learning about language builds knowledge. Learning a language builds skill. Teaching a language means creating the conditions that allow that skill to develop. I've written more about this in a blog post, which I'll link below if you'd like to explore that idea further. And I'd love to know, where do you see this distinction between knowing language and using language showing up in your classroom? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you'd like more tips and tricks teaching English, come and follow me for daily posts on Instagram at EnrichingELT. See you next time. Bye.